To Sylvester Stallone, the audition he crashed. Sylvester Stallone sneaks into a casting office he wasn't invited to by dressing as a janitor, spends 45 minutes actually mopping the hallway while actors audition inside, and when the casting director finally notices him and asks, "Who the hell are you?" gives an answer so unexpected, the director stops the entire audition to hear his story. What happens in the next 8 minutes doesn't just get Stallone arrested, it gets him cast in the lead role. This is the story of how desperation became strategy, how invisibility became visibility, how 45 minutes of mopping floors created one of the most legendary guerrilla auditions in Hollywood history, and how a casting director named Susan learned that sometimes the best actors aren't the ones who wait to be seen, they're the ones who refuse to stay invisible. Los Angeles, California, July 1974, Tuesday afternoon, 2:47 p.m. A casting office in Century City, not a major studio, an independent production company on the 12th floor of a glass tower, the kind of place that makes small films, low budgets, unknown actors, the projects that might break through or might disappear, the gambles. The production is called The Street Fighter, low-budget action film about an underground fighter trying to escape organized crime. Not prestigious, not glamorous, but it's a lead role, real screen time, real dialogue, the kind of part that can change a career if the film finds an audience. Casting has been going on for 2 months. The director, Susan Chen, has seen 200 actors. Nobody's right. Too polished, too pretty, too trained. She needs someone rough, someone real, someone who looks like they've actually been in a fight, someone who carries violence in their body, naturally, not theatrically. The auditions today are the last round. Final callbacks. 10 actors. Invited only. Confirmed appointments. 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. 30 minutes each. Structured, professional, by the book. Sylvester Stallone is not one of those 10 actors. Stallone is 28 years old, living in a one-room apartment in Hollywood, 3 months behind on rent. His agent dropped him 4 weeks ago. "You're not booking anything. I can't represent someone who doesn't work. Call me if something changes." Something hasn't changed. Something has gotten worse. Stallone heard about the audition through a friend, another actor, someone who got called back. The friend mentioned it casually. "I have this call back tomorrow. Fighting movie. Lead role. Probably won't get it, but worth a shot." Stallone asked for details. The production company, the address, the time. The friend gave them, without thinking twice. Just conversation. Just sharing information between struggling actors who all chase the same impossible dream. But Stallone isn't treating it as information. He's treating it as opportunity, because he's desperate, really desperate, hasn't booked a job in 7 months, hasn't had an audition in 3 weeks. The industry is forgetting he exists, and if he doesn't do something bold, something memorable, something that forces people to see him, he's finished. So Stallone makes a plan, not a good plan, a crazy plan, the kind of plan you only make when conventional approaches have completely failed. He's going to crash the audition, but not by walking in and asking to read. That gets you thrown out. Security called, blacklisted. He needs to get inside without anyone noticing, needs to be invisible long enough to become visible on his own terms. Stallone goes to a thrift store, buys work clothes, navy blue pants, navy blue shirt, the uniform that janitors wear, costs him $4. Money he doesn't have, money he should spend on food, but this is more important than food. This is survival. Tuesday afternoon, 2:15 p.m. Stallone arrives at the building, wearing the janitor uniform, carrying a mop and bucket he bought at a hardware store for $8. Another $8 he doesn't have. Total investment, $12. His entire remaining cash. He walks through the lobby, doesn't make eye contact with security, just walks like he belongs, like he's supposed to be there. The uniform does the work. People see the clothes, not the person, see janitor, and stop actually looking, become invisible. Stallone takes the elevator to the 12th floor, gets off. The hallway is empty. Office doors closed, quiet, professional. The casting office is at the end of the hall, suite 1245. He can see it from the elevator. Glass door, company name etched on the glass, Chen Productions. Stallone doesn't go to the door. Not yet. Too early. Auditions don't start until 3 p.m. If he shows up now, he'll be noticed, questioned, removed. So he does something insane, something so committed to the bit that it stops being acting and becomes reality. He starts mopping the hallway, actually mopping, not pretending, not performing, really cleaning the floor. Dips the mop in the bucket, squeezes out excess water, pushes it across the tile, back and forth, methodical, the way a janitor would mop if they were actually being paid to mop, because that's the key. Commitment. If you're going to be invisible, you have to actually be what you're pretending to be. Can't half-ass it. Can't look like you're faking. Have to disappear completely into the role. 2:30 p.m. Stallone is mopping. An executive walks past. Doesn't look at him. Doesn't acknowledge him. Just walks around the wet floor. Says nothing. Stallone is invisible. 2:45 p.m. A woman carrying coffee walks by. Steps carefully around the mop bucket. Says, "Excuse me," without making eye contact. Stallone nods. Keeps mopping. Still invisible. 2:55 p.m. The first actor arrives. Young guy, early 20s. Good looking, wearing expensive clothes, hair perfect. He walks past Stallone without seeing him, opens the glass door to Chen Productions, disappears inside. Stallone keeps mopping, closer now, mopping right outside the casting office, close enough to hear voices inside, close enough to hear the receptionist greet the actor. "You must be here for the 3 p.m. Sign in, please. Susan will be with you shortly." 3 p.m. The audition starts. Stallone can hear it through the door, muffled, indistinct, but he can hear the rhythm. The actor reading lines, Susan responding. The cadence of a professional audition. Stallone keeps mopping. The hallway is already clean, was clean when he started, but he keeps going, creating work, staying busy, staying invisible. 3:30 p.m. First actor leaves, looks disappointed, didn't get the part, can see it, in his body language, defeated shoulders, tight jaw. He walks past Stallone, still doesn't see him. Second actor arrives, 3:35 p.m. Woman this time. Short hair, athletic build. She glances at Stallone, brief eye contact, then looks away, invisible again. Stallone keeps mopping. He's been mopping for over an hour now. His arms ache. His back hurts. The bucket water is dirty. He dumps it in a utility closet bathroom down the hall, refills it, comes back, keeps mopping. 3:45 p.m. Susan Chen steps out of the office, needs to make a phone call, steps into the hallway for privacy. She's in her late 30s, Asian American, wearing all black, professional but artistic, hair in a tight bun, glasses, sharp eyes, the eyes of someone who notices details. She stands 10 feet from Stallone, talking on the phone about the auditions. Nobody's right yet. I don't know. Maybe we need to expand the search. Maybe the right person isn't coming through traditional channels. Stallone keeps mopping, right next to her, close enough to hear every word. She doesn't look at him, doesn't acknowledge him. He's furniture. He's part of the building, invisible. Susan finishes her call, walks back into the office. Stallone keeps mopping. 4 p.m. Third actor, fourth actor, fourth actor. Time passes. Stallone mops the same 30-foot stretch of hallway over and over. It's been cleaned a dozen times. Spotless. But he keeps going, because stopping means leaving, means the plan fails, means invisibility ends before he's ready. 4:45 p.m. Susan steps out again, frustrated, talking to her assistant. This isn't working. Nobody has the edge. Nobody feels dangerous. They all feel like actors, playing tough guys. I need someone who eyes a tough guy. She's standing right next to Stallone again. He's mopping around her feet. She steps aside without looking, still talking, still frustrated. Then, something happens. Susan's assistant points to something on a clipboard. Susan looks down, sees Stallone's reflection in the wet floor, really sees it, sees him mopping, sees that he's been mopping for almost 2 hours, sees that the floor is immaculate, sees that something doesn't add up. Susan stops talking, looks at Stallone, really looks. She says, "Excuse me." Stallone stops mopping, looks up, makes eye contact for the first time in 2 hours. Susan says, "How long have you been mopping this hallway?" Stallone says calmly, "About 2 hours." Susan's eyes narrow. The hallway isn't that big. Why would it take 2 hours? Stallone says, "Because I'm not really mopping. I'm auditioning." Silence. Complete silence. Susan's assistant's mouth opens. Susan just stares. Susan says slowly, "You're auditioning by mopping my hallway." Stallone says, "By being invisible, by showing you I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be in that room, by proving I understand commitment, by becoming something you don't look at, so I could become something you can't ignore." Susan should be angry, should call security, should have him removed immediately. This is trespassing. This is deception. This is deception. This is wildly inappropriate. But Susan doesn't call security, because something about this is fascinating, disturbing, but fascinating. Susan says, "You weren't invited to this audition." Stallone says, "No." Susan says, "You dressed as a janitor, brought a mop, spent 2 hours cleaning my hallway, all to crash an audition you weren't invited to." Stallone says, "Yes." Susan says that's either insane or brilliant. "I haven't decided which." Stallone says, "Can I show you which?" Susan looks at her assistant, looks at Stallone, looks at the mop and bucket, the absurdity, the commitment, the sheer audacity. Susan says, "You have 8 minutes. Make me believe you're not just a crazy person." Stallone sets down the mop, doesn't take off the janitor uniform, doesn't prepare, just transitions from invisible janitor to visible actor. Instantly, they go inside the office waiting room. The receptionist stares. An actor waiting for his turn stares. Susan ignores them, leads Stallone to the audition room. It's small, white walls, a camera on a tripod, a table with sides, pages of the script, 2 chairs. Susan sits, gestures to the other chair. Stallone sits. Susan says, "You have 8 minutes. I'm not giving you sides. I'm not telling you the character. I want you to tell me why you spent 2 hours mopping my hallway. Stallone understands. This isn't a regular audition. This is a test. Explain yourself. Justify the insanity. Prove this wasn't just desperation. It was strategy. Stallone doesn't hesitate, doesn't prepare, just starts talking. I've been to 100 auditions, maybe more, and every time, it's the same. I wait in a room with 20 other guys who look like me, sound like me, want it as bad as me. We all read the same lines. We all try to stand out, and the truth is, we're all invisible, because there's too many of us, too much desperation, too much sameness. Stallone leans forward. So I thought, what if I stop trying to stand out in the audition room? What if I stand out before I get to the audition room? What if I become invisible first, so that when I reveal myself, you actually see me, not just another actor, but someone who understands what this business requires: commitment, strategy, willingness to do what others won't. Susan is listening, really listening, not looking at notes, not thinking about the next question, just listening. Stallone continues. I mopped your hallway for 2 hours, and I wasn't pretending. I was actually cleaning, because that's what the role required. The role of janitor. And if I can commit to a role that doesn't matter, that nobody's watching, that gets me nothing. Imagine how I'll commit to a role that does matter, that people are watching, that could change everything. Susan says. So this was a demonstration of commitment. Stallone says, of invisibility becoming visibility, of understanding that sometimes the best way to be seen is to first disappear. You said you need someone who feels dangerous, someone real, someone with edge. You're not going to find that person in a waiting room full of pretty actors doing their best tough guy impression. You're going to find it in someone who crashes your audition dressed as a janitor, because that person isn't acting. That person is surviving, and survival is dangerous. Survival is real. Survival is the edge you're looking for. Stallone sits back. I'm not the best actor you'll see today. I'm probably not the most trained, but I'm the one who mopped your hallway for 2 hours to get 8 minutes of your attention. And if you're making a movie about a fighter who refuses to quit, who does whatever it takes to survive, who turns invisibility into weapon, you just found him. Because I didn't act that character today. I lived it. Susan is quiet, watching Stallone, processing, calculating, measuring risk. Then Susan says, that was 6 minutes. You have 2 more. Show me the character, not the janitor, the fighter. Stallone stands, doesn't ask for context, doesn't ask for setup, just becomes someone else, right there, instantly. His body changes, posture shifts, shoulders roll forward, hands loose, but ready, eyes harder, voice drops lower, becomes gravelly, becomes someone who's been hit too many times, someone who survived by refusing to stay down. Stallone says, in character, you think I want to fight, you think I like getting hit. I hate it. Every punch, every bruise, every morning, I wake up hurting, but I keep showing up, because quitting is the only thing I hate more than fighting. So you want to beat me? You better kill me, because if I'm still breathing, I'm still coming, and I don't get tired. I don't get scared. I just get angry. Because angry lasts longer than talent, lasts longer than training, lasts longer than you. Stallone holds the character. 2 full minutes. Doesn't break, doesn't soften, just exists as someone else, someone dangerous, someone real. When the 8 minutes end, Susan says, "Stop." Stallone stops. Immediately, transitions back from fighter to Stallone. Just like that. Susan says, "You can go." Stallone nods, stands, walks to the door, doesn't ask how he did, doesn't beg for feedback, just leaves, goes back to the hallway, picks up his mop and bucket, walks to the elevator, rides down, walks out of the building, back into the Los Angeles heat, back into uncertainty. But something feels different. Something feels like it worked. Like the crazy plan wasn't just crazy, was calculated, was effective, was seen. 3 days later, Friday afternoon, Stallone gets a call, unknown number. He almost doesn't answer, thinks it's a debt collector, but something makes him pick up. A voice, female, professional. "Is this Sylvester Stallone?" Stallone says, "Yes." The voice says, "This is Susan Chen from Chen Productions. The audition you crashed on Tuesday." Stallone's stomach drops, thinks this is it. She's calling to threaten legal action, to tell him he's blacklisted, to make sure he never works in this town. Susan says, "I've thought about you every day since Tuesday, about the mop, about the 8 minutes, about what you said, about who you were when you performed." Stallone waits, can't breathe. Susan says, "I'm offering you the lead role, the fighter. We start shooting in 6 weeks. It's low budget. You'll make $3,000 for the whole shoot, but it's a lead. It's your film, and I think you're going to be extraordinary." Stallone can't speak, literally can't form words. Susan continues, "You did something I've never seen. You turned desperation into art, turned rejection into strategy, and you committed so fully to being invisible that when you revealed yourself, I couldn't look away. That's what acting is. That's what this character needs. Someone who understands that survival requires transformation. You proved you understand that. So the role is yours, if you want it." Stallone finds his voice. "I want it." Susan says, "Good. I'll send over the contract. And Sylvester, keep the janitor uniform. We're writing it into the film." The character starts as a janitor, someone nobody sees, someone invisible, until he's forced to fight, until invisibility becomes his weapon. Art imitating life, or life imitating art. I'm not sure which. The film shoots 6 weeks, low budget, grueling schedule. Stallone gives everything, every scene, every take, channels the desperation, the refusal to quit, the understanding that survival requires doing what others won't. The film premieres 6 months later, small release, limited theaters. But critics notice Stallone, start writing about him. Raw intensity, dangerous authenticity. An actor who doesn't perform toughness, he embodies it. The film doesn't make much money, breaks even, nothing more, but it gets Stallone seen, gets him meetings, gets him on casting directors' radar, opens doors that were closed. 20 years later, 1994, Susan Chen is teaching a directing masterclass at AFI, American Film Institute, teaching the next generation of filmmakers. One session is about casting, about finding actors, about recognizing talent. Susan tells the story, the janitor, the mop, the 45 minutes, the 8-minute audition, the lead role. A student asks, "Was that ethical, letting him crash the audition?" Susan says, "Ethics and art don't always align. I should have called security. I should have had him removed, but something told me, this person understands something most actors don't. They understand that getting seen requires refusing to stay invisible, and that understanding is rare. So I gave him 8 minutes, and those 8 minutes taught me more about casting than 20 years of traditional auditions. Another student asks, "Do you recommend actors crash auditions?" Susan says, "No, absolutely not. It's trespassing. It's inappropriate. It could get you arrested. But I recommend actors understand what Sylvester taught me that day. The best performances happen when you stop performing, when you stop trying to impress and start trying to transform, when you commit so fully to something that it stops being a choice and starts being necessity." He didn't mop that hallway to impress me. He mopped it because it was the only way in. And that desperation, that commitment, that refusal to accept invisibility, that's what made him extraordinary. Susan pauses. "I've cast hundreds of actors since then, but I've never forgotten the janitor, because he taught me talent isn't just skill. It's hunger, it's strategy. It's the refusal to let circumstance dictate outcome. And sometimes, the best actors aren't waiting in your lobby. They're mopping your hallway, becoming invisible, waiting for the exact right moment to be seen." After class, Susan gets a package. No return address. Inside, a framed photograph. The mop and bucket from 1974. Stallone kept them for 20 years, along with the janitor uniform. A note attached to Susan. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for giving me 8 minutes. Thank you for teaching me that sometimes the role starts before you walk in the room. These are the tools that changed my life. Thought you should have them. You gave me a career. I'm giving you the mop. Fair trade. Silly." Susan hangs the photo in her office, next to her awards, next to her credentials, next to everything that proves she's successful. But that photo matters more, because it's not about success. It's about recognizing hunger when you see it, about giving someone 8 minutes when they've earned it through 2 hours of commitment, about understanding that the best art comes from desperation transformed into strategy. The casting office is gone now. Building renovated, company dissolved, but the story remains, gets told in film schools, acting classes, industry panels, the janitor audition, the legend of Sylvester Stallone, mopping his way into a lead role. And every time it's told, someone asks, "Would that work today?" The answer, probably not. Security is tighter. Buildings are locked, access is controlled, but the principle works. The lesson works. Find a way to be seen, refuse to stay invisible, commit so fully to getting in the room that people can't ignore the commitment. That's timeless. That's always going to work. Maybe not with a mop, but with something, with whatever tool your desperation and creativity combine to create. 45 minutes of mopping, 8 minutes of auditioning, 1 lead role, 1 career launched, 1 lesson immortalized. Not about the mop, never about the mop, about what the mop represented. Commitment, strategy, the refusal to let no invitation mean no chance, the understanding that invisibility isn't failure, it's opportunity, it's the setup for the reveal. Stallone became invisible to become visible, became a janitor to become an actor, mopped a hallway to clean up in Hollywood. What are you willing to do to be seen? What hallway are you willing to mop? What role are you willing to inhabit completely, even when nobody's watching, to prove you deserve the role everyone's watching? Because somewhere, right now, someone's crashing an audition. Not literally, but spiritually, doing something unconventional, something risky, something that might get them thrown out, or might get them seen. And the difference between thrown out and seen is commitment, strategy. the willingness to be invisible long enough to make visibility inevitable. Stallone taught that, Susan learned that, and 45 minutes of mopping became 50 years of legend. The janitor who wasn't, the actor who was, the mop that opened the door. That's not desperation. That's art. That's survival. That's Hollywood.